understand that a lot of us in this room, or a lot of people that we know, I know 3/4 of us in the Western hemisphere of this earth, don't consider ourselves to be creative. So before I talk about how to define yourself as a creator, I think it's important that we defend that we're a creator and that we're creative. So two areas I want to talk to you about in terms of defending this innate creativity that is within all of us. First one is cortex. Second one is childhood. Let's talk about cortex first. A study was done. I want to talk to you about. A study was done at a big name university, rhymes with Schmarvard, might have heard of it. What they did was they brought in jazz musicians. They brought them into a room, and they said, we want to understand how the brain works when you're creative. Not just them, but we'll be able to replicate the findings to humanity broadly. So they brought these jazz musicians in, they came in carrying their tubas and their harps or whatever they play, and they came into the room, and what the researchers did was put this thing on their head called an fMRI machine, which is like an MRI machine but with an F on the front of it. Just in case you didn't know what that was. Actually, fMRI stands for real-time tracking, as opposed to snapshot tracking that an MRI does. fMRI is real-time tracking of the movement, of the activations of the different regions of your brain. Basically, how your blood's flowing in different regions of the brain. They want to know what can that tell us about how humans are creative. The study reveals some amazing things. If you go to the next slide, this is what it revealed. There you go. That's it. I'll tell you what it means. It's actually, what's most amazing about it is that it's not what the brain does, it's what the brain doesn't do when we're creative. That is so unbelievable. If you look at that with the arrows pointing, that region of the brain, it's actually the prefrontal cortex. Those two things at the top are the eye sockets. So it's basically the frontal part of your cortex. It didn't activate. Your prefrontal cortex did not activate. So researchers were puzzled. They're like, this is a critical area of the brain, that the cortex is responsible for a lot of things. Why didn't it activate when these musicians were being creative? So they pondered on it. They didn't have an answer. So they brought in psychologists and neurologists and more people, and they came to an interesting finding, which is your cortex, your prefrontal cortex, is in charge of self-regulation and self-identity. So what the brain does when you're creative is it turns off your regulatory department. It makes it easier for you to be innovative. It makes it easier for you to think differently. There's less holding you back. The brain wants you to be creative. The brain is designed for you to be creative. The brain is most creative when you're least connected to rational thought.